Hey, everybody, welcome to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. I'm Mike Catalana. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Jenna would yell at me if I did not say that to you. Jenna doing some other work today. Dan getting a Veterans Day off. So as we get ourselves ready for a no Buffalo Bills football weekend, I would think you would agree it's the sweetest way to have that if you're a Bills fan, because they certainly took care of business on Thursday night when we were out there in LA. We'll talk more about that game in a minute. I wanted to get started by talking about what the news is from today, and it's Jordan Poyer getting a little more money, or the potential for more money in his pocket. And let's start with what has been reported. It was the NFL Network saying that his incentives increased from the possibility of $500,000 to $2 million. So it's another $1.5 million he could add, depending on if he reaches those incentives. And I think this is a pretty good compromise on where they are. I think Poyer handled himself like a pro the entire time. He showed up. He came to the mandatory camp. He came to when he could have taken that time off. You know, they could have fined him for missing that. And even if they had to, who knows how they would have worked that out. But he showed up. It's a mandatory. Was at camp every day. Got hurt in camp and came back. And he starts out by playing well. He did early on give up a play to Cooper Kupp involved in that coverage. But come on, Poyer's Poyer. He had an interception later. And we know what he means to this team from a leadership perspective, and certainly in that strong safety perspective of what he brings on and off the field to the franchise. And I think the Bills know that. I certainly think Brandon Beane knows that. It's been an interesting I'll say negotiation or time, because you do have the unique circumstances where you have two safeties in their 30s. And we always joke. In fact, one time I think I asked those guys, is it Poyer and Hyde or Hyde and Poyer? And they laughed like they don't care. But they have been attached in that way. They've played great. I'll say I think they're the best safety duo in the league. But when you have two guys in their 30s, just based on the way teams pay players, I don't know if you can or will pay both. But Rosenhaus did say, Drew Rosenhaus, the agent, that he's appreciative of what the Bills did, and they look to continue negotiations on an extension. Could it happen? Sure, it could. Could they move on from him at the end of the year? Sure. This is the NFL, and the Bills will be looking at their options. Now, they appear to really like Jaquan Johnson in that strong safety role. He's the third guy there. He hasn't had to play very much, because these guys are on the field for everything. Everybody was alerted to how well he can play when there was that injury during training camp. But Poyer and Hyde stay on the field. So you have a guy like that. Damar Hamlin, a guy they drafted, been mostly a special teams guy. I think he would fill more of the free safety role for Micah Hyde. But, Poyer's been really good. And so we'll see how this goes for the rest of the year, because, like I said, he's going to play at a high level. And let's see how the season plays out, what this team does. They win a Super Bowl championship. You'll all be happy with that. But sometimes when that happens, teams then decide to make some other moves because they've already reached that goal, and then they look to the future. So what would the Bills do? I think no doubt, I was looking this past year for them to maybe draft a safety early. They did not do that. They went with the corner position and got a couple of guys who look like they were going to be real players. At some point, they're going to draft a safety high, and it could very well and probably should very well be next year. I haven't looked at the draft yet. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I could see a guy in the first 3 rounds being drafted. And maybe if Poyer's not there going forward, that it becomes Jaquan Johnson next year. And then from that point on, it becomes more of a guy who could become a draft pick and could eventually work his way or try to win that job during the offseason. So let's find out what they decide to do going forward. For right now, I like it. I like that they acknowledge that this guy deserves more money. I like that Poyer has been a pro's pro, stayed on the field, plays hard, sacrifices his body out there. And if you're going to pay a guy a little bit later in his time, maybe he's one of those guys. Obviously, there's an affinity on both sides, and I don't think he wants to go anywhere. But these things do happen in the league. So temporary, sort of give him a little money. We'll see what the incentives are, but I would think they're pretty attainable. And then look in the offseason, depending on where they are. to see if they want to make another move. So that would be the first thing I wanted to talk about. I know that's the news of today. The second thing was something, the game was great for the Bills. We all know the way it went. Defensive line was outstanding. I mean, Von Miller getting going right away, getting a couple of sacks, including the first one, constant pressure on the Rams. Only the turnovers really hurt the Bills. Otherwise, I think they would have been up bigger, certainly at halftime. But maybe it was better the way it went because they came out in the second half on the road when the Rams had to feel fortunate to be in the game. And I thought they just dominated that second half. And I thought Josh Allen was Josh Allen. It's funny, the stat line with the 2 interceptions, I'm not 100% sure on what went on with the one with Jamison Crowder, whether Crowder was supposed to stop in that zone and that's where Josh was throwing it, or maybe he didn't lead him enough. Whatever it was, it ended up being a pick. Isaiah McKenzie should make that play. It was in a crowd, but he should make it, and that was a pick. The rest of the game, Josh was Josh. Now, the one thing that came up is the 10 carries on offense, and he did take some hits in the game. He gave out some hits, too. We know about the stiff arm. It was Josh Allen personified. It was spectacular that he did that. So the game ends, the Bills win, and they roll, and we're in the press room afterward. And what I asked him was, you carried it 10 times in this. We had the big moment with the stiff arm and all, but I said, I know you'll do anything to help this team, but do you enjoy running the football, especially as much as he ran it? Here's what he said.
I like winning. Whatever I'm asked to do, I'm willing to do. And again, limiting the hits, obviously sliding and getting out of bounds, that's, above, the utmost importance there. The best ability is availability. But again, when I'm called upon to do something for my team, I'm willing to do it. Again, they're down, just trying to make a play for the team. Just doing what I can do to try to get a first down. That's it. Guys appreciate that. I play hard. I want to win games no matter how I can do it. That's just an example of, what I'm willing to do to win a game and just try to get a first down and allow us to keep moving the ball. So, it's just all in the heat of the moment, and, I think guys appreciate that.
Well, there's certainly no doubt the guys do appreciate that. The stiff arm was very popular amongst his teammates. I even asked Gabe Davis, I said, Josh doesn't like talking about that. You think he'll brag about it a little bit? And he's like, that's just not the way he's wired. Some other guys might. I mean, I just look for the day where Isaiah McKenzie has a stiff arm like that in a game. He'd never stop talking. But maybe if it was against Jalen Ramsey in the game, Josh would have talked a little more. But about the runs themselves, he's a weapon. He's an offensive weapon on the field. He is going to carry the ball. I tell people all the time, they'll say, I don't know if he should run so much. I'm like, he's going to run. I worry about the injuries more when he's standing in the pocket. I mean, I think when you're a little more vulnerable, guys coming full speed at you when you're not coming to them, that's what I worry about. Now, I say that, and you guys saw a few of those tackles where he's getting sort of gang tackled and then some extra hits. Your body can get contorted in funny ways. That's always a concern. You land funny, somebody comes down on it, that's when somebody gets hurt. But I will say, if you think they're not going to use him and he's not going to run the ball and run people over, run around them, run through them, whatever it happens to be, that's the way he's going to play. I will say this. When you're up 31-10 or even, 24-10, maybe not 24, you got to still make plays. I might put a kibosh on the Josh runs at that point. And they had a few still later in the game. And I'm like, at this point, let somebody else carry the ball. That's the only part I would say. When the game's in hand, that might be the point when I say no more Josh Allen runs. Now, I'm just checking the box score here to be sure. Again, he had the 10 runs. The other thing is they had 15 carries by the running backs. 8 for Singletary, 6 for Moss, and then 1 for James Cook, which did not go well. But I think that's an aberration. He fumbled on his first snap. Hopefully that's the, trivia question of what did James Cook, who had a great career for the Bills, do on his first carry? And the answer is he fumbled. I thought Singletary looked really good. I thought Zach Moss had moments. I was surprised, like you were, that he carried the ball that many times and got that many touches. But that being said, I wanted to get into the play calling. And a lot of people are very excited about Ken Dorsey. I don't understand the idea of thinking badly about Brian Dable. I mean, look, Dan talks about it all the time. We're Brian Dable fans. I thought Dable was an outstanding coordinator. Looking at that box score again, you got 8 carries for Singletary and 6 for Moss and 1 for James Cook. And, maybe someday that James Cook carry is going to be that trivia question saying, James Cook, who had this great career for the Bills, what was his first carry? And you say, yeah, it wasn't a touchdown. It was a fumble. But not about him, more of what Ken Dorsey did with the backs. And that's 14 carries by them. I think it's 25 overall of runs. They weren't all called because I'm sure Josh, if you looked back, a couple of those were pass plays where he took off. But in the 20s, I think that's what they're going to end up being. It just, sometimes I think about this. I'll read some comments, and I think Dorsey's going to do a great job. But I read some comments that people think it's going to be much different or way improved on what they did with Brian Dable. And look, you're not going to hear negative stuff out of us on Brian Dable. I thought he was an outstanding coordinator. I thought what he helped do for Josh Allen and his growth was spectacular. I don't know if he's going to have the same success with the Giants. Breaking news here, Daniel Jones is not Josh Allen. So while Josh Allen helped Brian Dable, do not forget how much Brian Dable did from him. But what I'm going to say about Dorsey is his play calling, I thought was really creative and it was good, but let's not kid ourselves. We saw outstanding play calls from Brian Dable. Go back to the passes to Josh Allen, like the one in the Houston playoff game where he caught the pass for a touchdown. When you look at I'm comparing it to the little play fake on the third down where Gabe Davis is wide open. Great call, great play, and it worked. So I'm encouraged by what I saw out of Ken Dorsey, but I think it's going to be very similar to what you saw out of Brian Dable. Josh is going to run. They're going to take shots down the field. They're going to move the ball around to different people. That's pretty much what Dable did. And I think Dorsey has a chance to be, take that to another level as Josh continues to play the way he is. I mean, come on. 4 of the last 6 games, they haven't even punted. I mean, this offense can be lethal. Lethal. I mean, the Rams do have Jalen Ramsey, who got torched in the game. They do have Aaron Donald, who's a monster, but you really only heard his name a couple of times in that game. Josh got rid of the ball quickly. Wide receivers were all outstanding. I mean, yes, Isaiah McKenzie probably should have caught that, but he comes back with the touchdown, adds a gender reveal to it. I mean, he had a good game. The only guy who didn't really do anything offensively from a pass catching was Dawson Knox, and that'll come because Knox is a really good player who got paid. So that'll be the case. So I think Dorsey's going to be good. I just would hold off on the idea that it's going to be so different than what Dable did. When you have success running the ball, nobody's complaining about the 25 carries from the backs or the quarterback in the backs. And they moved the ball. But they did such a good job offensively moving it. That's what we've seen this team do. Look at what we saw at the end of the year last year in Kansas City and the perfect game they had against New England. The consistent thing there is that Stephon Diggs, that's Gabe Davis, that's Josh Allen, of course. But not only is it a change at coordinator, change in the offensive line coach. And Aaron Cromer is the guy now. So the offensive line held up really well in that game. So Josh did take a couple of sacks, but for the most part, they blocked well, both in pass protection and certainly in the run game. So it was all a positive. So it'll be a good weekend for Bills fans to sit back and see what else the rest of the league is doing. But as you know, what the Bills did in that game was show everybody that the idea that they are the Super Bowl favorite is real and it's spectacular. And I think we'll see how it goes starting with the next week. But this team is really good. It's what we've been talking about a lot. And I think we're going to continue to talk about that with the next one coming up on a week from Monday when they play against the Tennessee Titans. And remember, every Thursday night at 7 o'clock, we'll have our Buffalo Plus Live. That's our live show. We'll be reading your comments. We'll be talking about the game coming up. So that begins this coming Thursday. I guess it would be next week. Thursday, Dan, Jenna, and myself, all of us talking Bills football. So that's going to do it for today. Just a little something to talk about over the weekend. Good for Jordan Poyer, a little more cash or the opportunity for it. Let's see what they do going forward. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the Buffalo Plus channel on YouTube.